Hey everybody, I'm Dane Sanders. Welcome to Fast Track Coaching. This is episode 108. We've been doing this for well over 2 years now, and there are episodes and then there are episodes. And this week's, for me, is one that's very dear to my heart, and I know to many of yours, as you guys have been tracking all that's been going on. Our friends Vicky and Jed Toffer, both Tammy and I are close with Vicky and Jed, and have been moved by their resilience. And I recognize that in sharing that, a lot of you guys are like, who's Vicky and Jed? Or what, Vicky and Jed? I thought they were just great photographers and ran a great portrait studio. What's the big hubbub? A lot's gone on in their life, and I'll let Vicky share from her own mouth, but I want to just give you a little context for what we're going to do today so that we don't, because there's so many things that we could talk about, but we want to narrow the conversation to something that's helpful for you. And just if you've never been on Fast Track Coaching before, what we do is we have a conversation where it's me, my guest, and you. And your job is to participate, and we hope that you will. And the way you participate is you ask questions, and the intention or commitment of the show is to help you move your business or your creativity or whatever forward. And as I was walking around WPPI and seeing a lot of really amazing folks that I could have invited to be on the show this week, when I saw Vicky and their new baby, and Jed too, although Jed can't be here today, I was just blown away by, this is the perfect fit. This is the story that I want to make sure gets told, even though a lot of people know about it, but really to help people understand what it took for them to overcome impossible. Because I have a hunch many of you guys, where you're sitting, whether you're at home, you're not here in Las Vegas, or maybe you're catching this in the replay because you're in Las Vegas and you couldn't have a chance to watch it live. You might feel like you've gotten a ton of information, or you might have circumstances in your life that just feel overwhelming, and just there's no way to come around them. And the story that you're going to hear today, I think, will encourage you and give you a sense of, gosh, maybe there's more possible than I'm giving credit if I look for the resources that are maybe underneath my nose, even if the resource means like not knowing what to do, but saying that out loud and declaring it and seeing what other folks might be able to provide on your behalf. So we're going to have a great conversation. Thank you, Christine, for saying I have a nice haircut. I appreciate that. The call is only going to be for about 30 minutes. So if you want to get your questions or comments in, please do jump in right away, and we'll go from there. But first off, welcome, my friend Vicky.
Hello.
And Vicky, you and I and Jed and so many thousands of photographers around the world have been in tune with what's been going on for you guys. But I'm wondering if you could, as concisely as you can, that's almost an impossible request, give us the snapshot of what life has looked like for you over the last 6 to 9 months.
Well, my husband and I, 3 years ago, started an adoption process to adopt a little girl from Nepal, and we were told it would take a year to a year and a half, and it took, it's been 3 years now since we started that, and last June, we got a referral picture of a little girl, Purnima, and
you call her Nima, but her name is Purnima.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
yes.
A month later, in July, we received notification that we could go adopt her, go to Nepal. And so within just, a week or two, obviously we had things on the books in August with our business that we just put everything on hold, moved everybody's appointments, and we were told we'd be there 3 weeks to 1 month.
Well, I remember a year ago at WPI, we were walking around and everyone was constantly bugging you, like, now? Are you going to go now? Yeah. Are you going to go now?
Yeah.
And you're like, not yet. Stop asking.
Yeah, it's, the whole thing, the whole process, the whole 3 years has been a lot of just unknowns. That's been the hardest part, is just, having faith that it was going to work out. And honestly, I really did get to a point where I just didn't know if it was going to happen. I mean, that does happen, that something's going to happen and we're not going to be able to adopt a baby. And so we were ecstatic in June, but it still didn't seem real. We thought, well, what if we don't ever get the notice we can come actually adopt her? And Nepal is a country where, it's like every other week the government could be getting overthrown and it's really unstable. And so things can happen that would make it a reality that we couldn't go get our baby. And so that's why we just immediately, we found out we could go. very quickly got things put together. We went, and we're planning on being gone the month of August. And actually, while we were en route, August 4th is when we left.
On the plane.
Yeah, en route on the plane. The day we landed, the U.S. changed some, I don't know the best way to put it, policies, ways they were doing things that would affect getting a visa for our daughter. So right when we got off the plane, we went to the embassy, and they told us not to adopt our daughter, that we might not get a visa. And
After 3 years.
Right, and we hadn't met her at this point, so we're being told, like, hey, it may not happen after flying 40 hours, getting there. And we're exhausted. And right from the embassy, we went straight to the orphanage, and we met our daughter. And we looked at each other, and we were like, whatever it takes. And we didn't know that would mean living in Nepal for 6 months. But again, a lot of unknowns.
The laughter, 'cause there's nothing funny about it.
No. I mean, we laughed many times about it, 'cause what else do you do?
Right,
and so Jed came home in September and left Nima and I there, because we adopted her right away, and within that first week, and then she lived with us. And she was our daughter whether that meant I had to live in Nepal for 2 years, 6 months, whatever it was just we couldn't get a visa to get back. And so, and they couldn't tell us when. Like, we really had no idea. It was just, and so obviously every day that went by was a day we were missing of the busiest time when we make the majority of our money at our studio.
Yeah, and let's give some context for that, because a lot of folks, although most folks know who you are, but to give some context for your studio, you have a 7,000 square foot studio in Morton, Illinois. You do pretty significant volume. You've been
most of that from August to
in that
to
one
summer,
window that you would be gone. So it's not just those months. It's proportionally for your year. What kind of percentage would you say of your revenue?
Oh, I mean, like 2/3 of it. I mean, it's the chunk of it, and so. For a few months we were fine. It was hard, and we knew we'd have to make maybe some different adjustments in our lifestyle and things, but we'd be fine. And then as it kept going on and on, I mean, it started to get pretty tough. And, we had to let go of one of our full-time employees and cut back hours for other employees, and that was really hard. And honestly, I'd say the biggest thing that happened, it's changed just our perspectives on our perspective on so much stuff. I mean, because that's what it is. It's like, and I actually found by living in such a place as Nepal, where 14 hours a day we could lose power, and you can't drink the water, and just it's a place that if you visited you'd find possibly enchanting in certain levels, but to live there and raise your child there by myself, I never would have thought, when we start our family, I'll be living in a third world country by myself, So just all the things we were not really prepared for, and the unknowns, and but it was an escape. Like, I now, looking back on it, besides the hardships that I have at home and with the business, and I've only been home a few weeks, so I don't even know what all those things are.
Right.
And but it's been I don't know. It's just it's something that I still look at my time in Nepal as a gift that I would not have had with Nima and all the stuff we clutter our lives with that would have distracted me from being with her. So as a mother, I wouldn't change a thing about what happened. I mean, it was me and it was her, and it was...
That's crazy to hear you say that. I mean...
Playing with their toys made out of lead paint, and, all the craziness of things that,
Well, every line you're saying, it's so easy to go, oh, no, that can't be. Like, okay, let me just repeat back what I'm hearing you say. 2/3 of your income from an annual perspective gone. That's here in the United States. Number 2, legitimate obligations. Number 3, separation from husband for half a year. Going to an entirely foreign culture where things like electricity is like never
a luxury.
A luxury. Like, really? We got electricity? Oh, that's really exciting. Like, or when Nima thought you thought Nima broke her arm.
Yeah, we couldn't get her X-ray because there was no power.
No power on an X-ray. Like, any one of these things, I could totally envision, or a zillion more of them, I could totally envision me and my first world entitled perspective losing it. Like, what do you mean I don't have power? Like, what do you know who I am? Like, as if any of those things actually matter. And in the middle of all that too, the sense of feeling wronged, sense of I would feel like a victim in many ways, the sense of the political reality of what you're kind of getting introduced to that you didn't go looking for, but it kind of landed on you. The symbolic kind of position you now took relative to all the folks that were in this, because you discovered not only dozens of families in your situation in Nepal, but internationally, this isn't entirely uncommon. And then you have almost over 900,000 orphans that you got introduced to, like, oh my gosh, this isn't just ours. We're one of a million that are in this kind of dire set of situation. So, but I think, and we're just talking here in Las Vegas. As I load these things up and the weight of those things come on you, how did you not get crushed? And the reason I ask it is because I know there are people at home right now, and this isn't a comparison game, because comparison is never helpful. Whatever circumstances anyone's in, when they're feeling the I can't do it, like it's just too much for me. The temptation to kind of pull the metaphorical ripcord, if there's one to pull, is always real. So don't get in the comparison game if you're hearing this, but I know there are people who are at home who are listening to this who are like, yeah, my world, my circumstances, I can't pull it off. I'm feeling crushed, and I need some sense of relief or hope or help. In the reality of the day-to-day life for you and Jed, to try to, how did you wake up every morning and go, we're going to get through today?
I just looked at my daughter. I mean, really, like, I tell people, actually, everybody was like, the support we got from everyone, friends, family, the photography community was unbelievable. And just whether it was just messages, people telling me they were praying for us, I mean, support, there was just so much that happened. And the reality is people, I think, were feeling really bad for me, but this was way harder on Jed. Like I at least had Nima, like I was with her, we've waited for her for so long, and like I'm getting to spend every
unique bonding
moment with her, and he's, stuck at home every night by himself in our house, with her room that's decorated, but she's not there. I mean, it was way harder on him, I think. So I looked at it as an opportunity. I mean, to get to know her culture, where she came from, the people, we got to meet so many incredible people there, whether it was the other families adopting. I filled my time. I'm still a photographer, so I filled my time, with photographing the other families and their kids and working with, I donated my services, to a couple different nonprofits and did some stuff for them. And so those sorts of things were just so, I felt very content. I really did. And I think it was like a forced perspective. Like I didn't choose to do it, but now that I was in it, I actually had legitimate I was afraid to come home. I mean, after being there that long, and it has been hard. I've only been home a couple weeks, and now here we are often traveling, again, and I don't think I've even really processed all that's happened, and I don't know where we're headed and what we're going to do with the business, and we're hanging on by a thread. I mean, it's not like what I can tell you. What I know is what I left in August. I can't have that now, but I don't even want that now. I want a business. I'll still have a business, but it's not going to look like it looked in August, because that won't allow me to spend the time with Nima, and I have so much other. I have other places I want to put my energy that, maybe even related to photography, but, I've met too many people, and I'm haunted by too many images of people who need help that there's other things I can be doing.
Well, some of the things I'm hearing you say is that when the circumstances were presenting themselves to you and to Jed, and to Nima, like we won't know for many years, if ever, like how to talk about these things. But I'm so curious what her experience must have been like to just go through that radical transition and get to know your family that were coming over. And even it wasn't just your nuclear family; it was also, your parents and Jed's parents, and
they came over to babysit.
So I mean, crazy. And I know that when you came back for Escalate Live, you did like 45 sessions in 28 hours.
That was one of those were like the two hardest weeks. That was way harder than being in Nepal without power. It was coming home and being jet lagged and working nonstop for 2 weeks.
Crazy. But I want to notice that you said forced perspective, but I know plenty of people, myself included, who it's like you chose a perspective. Like you took on what a great opportunity to, it's not just like a Pollyanna, like everything's great, whatever, but this very authentic, real accounting for all the heaviness, but what is here that is good? Like once in a lifetime season where mother and daughter get to bond around culture, context, really go to her court and get that's something that could have been missed on a lot of people. And as you're kind of relaying your story and you think of photographers who you've met and you've met thousands of photographers around the world over the years, and you know that feeling of, I'm just overwhelmed, I can't make it.
Well,
What would you say to that?
Well, no, and I think, specifically what's been interesting, I know that one of the things just in teaching the last, 5-6 years, one of the biggest things we get hit with and questions, how do I balance my personal life and my work life? And, I'm not giving enough time to my kids, and I want to have this business, but I want to be a mom. And it's actually, the term, and I don't mean this in a bad way, like mom with a camera, like that's what I want to be. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I'm going backwards. Right. Like I'm like camera with a mom, it's like reversed, and I you don't have to go through what I went through to have those struggles. Like I think there's just so many people that on a daily basis, that's a struggle I'm facing now. How do I work and give the time to my child? And that's common with so many people have those same concerns and thoughts and struggles,
Well, it's funny you say that because Christine just jumped on and she said, are the things that you want to change with business or life now that you're home? And some of you're like, what doesn't get changed?
Everything.
But let's get specific, because one of the things I love about this too is this is although people can't relate to the Nepal experience, they can relate to maybe they're a mom and they got in this because it was a passion before they had kids, but now they have kids and they don't know how to negotiate it, or maybe they had a career and this, or maybe it's not even by gender, it's just like circumstances have shifted. Someone got sick, or someone lost a job, or whatever, and it feels like everything's fallen off its axis. When that happens, what specifically are you looking to locate your change around? Like, even though it's the first 3 weeks, because what's interesting to me is this is a window right now where it's so fresh, because pretty soon you'll get normal again, right? Like, maybe?
I hope not.
Really?
And I don't know what's normal. I mean, I've been asking myself that question for the months leading up leaving, knowing at some point I'd be going home, and since I've been home.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that I was so many worries and things I worried about here that I don't want to creep back in. Like, I'm scared of that. Like, even being in Vegas.
Like what things?
Okay, like, this is totally, like, ridiculous. I think this is ridiculous, right? My favorite store is Anthropologie, okay?
Okay.
I don't think I've ever walked into Anthropologie and not bought anything. And it's like, being here in Vegas, like, I just couldn't do it. Like, I can't spend that money, to spend this much, like, on a dress I wouldn't even have thought twice about before. And I know that sounds so ridiculous, but just that silly little thing that it scares me to get back into worrying.
Is it because of the poverty and the different
all kinds of things? It's like I actually have like a guilt in me that I just there's just so many people I met there that like can't even afford anything, whether it is clothes or food or shelter, and I'm just thinking, how can I just go out and spend this much? And it sounds, I don't know, like, it sounds, I think, kind of crazy, but I don't want to get back to a point where I'm just like buying this and spending this and and not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
When I feel like there's other places that money could go, and I think there's also a balance. Like, I don't want to go extreme, and I'm not trying to sound preachy. Like, people have also been blessed with opportunities here that I think it's okay to take them.
Right.
So instead of buying the Anthropologie dress, I went and found the 40% off sale, somewhere, and got a couple things, and great, whatever, that's fine. Or it's I sold my car that was like more a luxury SUV, and now my new car came to me with 150,000 miles, and that's okay.
That's right.
And actually feels better. It feels more comfortable to me. I feel better about it, but I'm scared of losing it. I feel like we all run this rat race, like here in the U.S. And I don't mean to say we all do, but it's very easy to fall into kind of just the chaos that we've created in our lives, and to be removed for 6 months, it's almost like a culture shock. Like, I didn't even, you don't have a phone that you can tweet from, and I didn't even use a phone, and half the time I couldn't use a computer, and it was a 12-hour time difference, so I couldn't even talk to people back home, and it was just, I literally was so isolated and removed, but like happy. Okay. Not that I can't be happy here, but I was happy with that I think we sometimes think we'll be happy if we get stuff, whatever that stuff might be, whether it's a stupid dress from Anthropologie, whether it's a car, whether it's the next new computer, whether it's, there's so many things that I think we all have certain things we want to attain, and we think, oh, and once I get that, I'll be happy. And
yeah, well, it's definitely that Western perspective, and I get that. I guess what I'm really struck by, though, as you're talking, is like the 150,000 mile car that you have right now, the new
which
one.
I love
great.
it.
Yeah, which is great. What I'm noticing is, and this is a category that I hope translates for folks, but my friend Jean Jobs, she talks about this idea called resource, and she says, you know, resource can show up differently for different people. Like I could see a this and say, is this half of a bottle of water? I could say, is this a resource? Well, no, it's trash, or it is water, or it's water. It could be optimism or pessimism. It could be. It's so much of it is on perspective, where I'm looking at it and going, is there a resource here? Or even if someone says, I'm walking along the trade show floor and someone says, how are you doing, Dane? And I say, and I'm pausing, I'm going, well, how am I answering this? Is how I'm doing based on my circumstances? Is it how my body feels at this particular moment? Is it my way of being? Like, am I optimistic? Am I encouraging? Is my heart okay? Like, there's so many different ways to find resource. Even if I'm grieving. Like, I remember I had a situation once where my daughter was deathly ill. She had to get a spinal tap and all these different things, and I had all these other responsibilities that I thought were so important to me, and like I had to give a talk to a large group of people, and I was really excited about it until it started happening, and then all of a sudden I was like, I don't care about this talk, and I never will again. Like, it doesn't matter to me anymore, because that's not resourceful to me. I'm not getting a lot of energy or value from it. What I'm getting energy and value around is like focusing on the things that matter most, which in that moment was my daughter. And I guess when I'm hearing you describe these things, it's like going to Anthropologie and buying the dress without thinking about it used to feel resourceful. Now it doesn't. And now all of a sudden, being very frugal and thoughtful about how you're consuming, all of a sudden feels like a resource. Like, this is giving you more than it ever could have before.
Well, and I feel like I learned that we can live on very little. You know, and I'm not saying I'm going to go home and just sell everything, you know, but I definitely think I hope it's changed us at that. Like you said, oh, it's going to go away and everything's just going to be normal. Like, I don't want that. Like, I want to remember, and I want to always have that, you know, where I am more thoughtful about what we're doing and how we're spending our time and our money, and even, you know, just that's the whole thing, even with the business. You know, I'm sure some of these people, you know, I'm talking about things besides the business, but what are you going to change? And, you know, well, with the business, I can tell you, like, right now we have 7,000 square feet. My dream right now would be a miracle that somebody would walk in and buy the building, and I would just honestly run it out of my home or have a 1,000 square foot studio and work a couple days a week with a couple part-time employees. Like, the exact opposite of what I'm doing. Now, you know, I don't think that's probably reality right now. So we have other things. You know, I need to come up with a plan of how can we use that space for other things. So we have a lot of different ideas and thoughts and of what we're going to do with the building to help relieve some of that overhead. Because I can't go there every day. I mean, I've done that for 10 years. That has been my baby for 10 years, and it's, you know, some people are probably like, how can you build all that up and just say I'm done with it? And I'm not done with it. You know, the cool thing I learned is that I think I was making my identity my studio, meaning the building and what we built. And I realized, especially when I came back for Escalate and those shoots, is that my clients, like, I've done my job, I've done my due diligence, and I've taken care of them, and they want me to photograph their kids. And I think, I'm assuming, I hope, but just even they worked with us to come in those 2 weeks, and it was a Band-Aid for our business. It didn't salvage it, but, you know, to help keep the employees we kept and to keep going. And I could go back to Nepal for 4 months, you know, and they were there with us. And I think they'll be there with us if we downsize, if we don't have 32 couches, if I just have 5, if we, you know, there's all these things that I'm just trying to process and figure out, you know. And I guess I realized, yes, I am a photographer. I love it. I went over there, and what did I end up doing? Photographing. You know, I mean, I've always said, you know, I have all these other interests and things I want to do. But yeah, I still want to be a photographer. I want to have a studio. But, you know, my building is not my identity. And I think that I really have held on to that for a long time.
So if I'm at home and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, and by the way, if you have any questions, of course, click the light bulb and go ahead and ask it. If you're listening to this, I'd encourage you to translate this to your own life. So the circumstances that you're in right now, where how could you make adjustments where you're at so that you could get more authentically what you're really going after? Because as I'm hearing you describe, like, the building, and by the way, I can totally relate to that. I don't even know if I've shared this with you, but I actually closed my studio down in Newport and I moved it home. And a lot of those concerns were, for me, a combination of things. Like this last year for me has been a ton of reevaluation around what is important, what really does matter to me, and am I willing to kind of throw it all in the fire and see what doesn't get burned up. And you know, when you also not been around, when you've been over in Nepal, I pay homage to you and Jed all the time because of the model, the way that you guys have shown example. And as you're listening at home and I'm listening here, I guess my encouragement is for you to consider how could this model of your way of being, how you are in the middle of your circumstances, regardless of your circumstances, be one where you have the habit of looking for the gifts, the things that are you never could have had access to in a million, like you never would have planned out the course you just took. Yet it's amazing to hear both you and Jed describe it as this like a gift and this.
Yeah. Well, I think
like
that,
what a severe gift.
Well, and I think though what I tell people is like I think I was so obsessed with my business that besides like a death, an illness, or a child, I don't know what else would have like taken me away from it for 6 months. And it makes me sad to even say that, but like now that it happened and it's like I got, you know, like fresh eyes to see, you know, from the outside perspective, everything and things that were important aren't now, and maybe decisions I was too scared to make or embarrassed or what will people think, or I don't care.
Right.
I don't care. You know, I want to just do what's right, you know, and what's right for our family and you know, again, not forcing this on anybody else. You know, I mean, I know this was just this is where we're at right now, and I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, it's only been a few weeks, and I'm still processing so much. But
the irony in that is, you didn't know that either before.
Yeah, lots of unknowns.
Like, you know, the folks that got up in the morning on 9/11, they didn't know.
Yeah.
But when my dad woke up in the morning, got in the car and drove to work, and he died, nobody knew. And that's always true. And
that's true for all of us. Like none of us know. And I think that was a really big thing that hit home, you know, being over there, because, you know, some different family emergencies and different things were happening back home while I was over there.
Right.
And, you know, those were the hardest times.
Right.
You know, when it's like, oh my gosh, I just feel so separated from everybody, and all these things are, you know, you just feel so helpless, you know, when things are going on. But then it just, that is what started to make me realize, you know, how thankful I was just for every day to be able to be with Nima, regardless of where it was. I mean, I could have been anywhere, and it would have been fine. It would have been fine.
What I'm so struck by too in all this is again, the circumstances kind of got thrust on you, but to leverage it as a means to reinvent. Like, if this was my only year left? Like, say I found out I had a terminal illness or whatever, would my life alter? Well, it totally would.
Right.
And if it would, then I would reevaluate, and I'd probably calibrate my time and all that sort of thing. And on some level, that's what happened for you guys. But what I love is now you've been given this gift where you don't have a terminal illness, you have terminal life.
Yeah.
Or not terminal, a great life in front of you, and with Nima in the room, and
well, I want to enjoy it. Like, I don't want to look back. Like, I have this fear after being able to spend all that time with her that, oh my gosh, like, if we had gone and just been there the 3 weeks or 1 month we were supposed to, I would have come back in September. Even if I wanted to be with Nima, I would have been hit with so much in sessions, and I would have been trying to juggle all these things, which I am having to do now.
Right.
But I had that 6 months, you know, to spend with her, and now I'm trying to. I know what I want though now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I'm more willing to give things up that I might not have been in September. So.
It's awesome. Well, again, so for folks who are at home, if they're sitting there and they're like, gosh, I wonder what else I could do with my life. Like, none of you guys, I hope, didn't get some bad news today, some bad circumstances. But regardless of whether you did or you didn't, you don't need those circumstances to make the adjustment.
Well, and you know what? I think just one other thing that I think really made me realize this more than anything is Nepal is still a country affected by the caste system. So, like, when people talk about, oh, we live in America, we have like all this opportunity.
Right.
Well, we really do. Like, you could make a decision that you're going to do something, and you can do it.
Explain the caste system, because I understand.
So the caste system would be where basically what you're born into, what caste of people level you're born into, like, you're pretty much stuck there. So, like, you're born into the caste system that they are just street cleaners. like that's pretty much what you're going to do, and the casts don't intermix. And
Yeah,
so
there's very little sense of freedom that you could break out of that.
Right. And so, I mean, just to be, and not to mention all the poverty that exists there, you know, I mean, and just not being able to get an education, and, you know, just seeing all of that, and meeting so many of these children and these kids, knowing that even if they said, hey, I want to do this, or I want to be this, I mean,
who cares what you want? Right.
Yeah, you know, and I feel like, gosh, you know, even the richest person, you know, there, I mean, like just the extremes of like people who maybe here don't have much money, but when you compare it to, and I think that's any country, you know, if you travel any country and see the poverty, it's like, oh my gosh, the poorest person here is like a wealthy person there.
So if you were going to like speak directly to the folks who are listening, and, you know, they're running their photo business, they have their set of circumstances in their life, and they get an inkling of like, I actually would like to reinvent or recalibrate my values or reset things up. What would you say to them of what's possible if they got clear on it? Like if they were willing to do whatever it, like it, yeah, I don't want to lead the question too badly. What would you say to folks who are just like, they don't like the way their life is turning out, and they want their life to turn out a new way, given that they live in a Western context? And we have some folks, like, and I saw Ross on there and some other folks from overseas, but live in a Western context where reinventing and possibility really is available.
I think it's just a matter of you know, and I feel like, you know, who am I to say anything, because I'm just at the beginning stages of reinventing, you know, like I don't even go, and it's going to be hard. Like, it's not going to be easy. I can sit here and talk about, oh, I want it to be, you know, different, and I feel different, and I mean, it's going to be hard, and I know that. I mean, there's going to be things that, you know, we're giving up, but I guess just knowing like how content I was with nothing, and then sometimes how uncontent I am with stuff. Like I know that now, and so it's like I want to get back to that place, but living here. So, you know, I think it's just a matter of you know, having that, you know, I think having accountability. If there's something that you are wanting to do, having somebody you can share that with, and having that accountability. And I think it's just committing. You know, it's a commitment. It's a commitment, and you know, and I know I'm going to screw up. You know, and I know that, you know, I mean, I already have, since I've been home with things, and I'm just like, you know,
like what things? True moments. Come on.
Oh, you know what? Like just time. Okay, like just even being. Sometimes I think like not being present, you know, to my daughter. Or like when I think that's just being a parent. You will always have that struggle, and I know we'll not always be able to be present with our kids. I was just talking to some photographers who are moms about this the other day. But just, you know, I have this desire, and I know that's what I want to do, but I let myself start to get cluttered with stuff. I found myself in the studio just like worrying about this and this, and being up there at all hours of the night, and you know, part of it being I was going on a trip, but like I'm just like, I don't want it, you know, I don't want it, you know, not that I don't want the studio, but I like, we created a monster. Now it's like you have to feed the monster. Yeah. So now it's like that backpedaling. So I mean, for me to say, what do you do to reinvent? Like, I don't know. Like, well, I'm right here. Like I'm just doing it, and I think it's, you know, stopping. I think it's, like I said, I'm going to make a commitment to do this, and right now, because of the chaos of traveling, but once I get home, I'm home without any travels, I think, for like 4 months. So, you know, I'm really, that's my goal. After this trip, this is kind of the calm before the storm. You know, I haven't had to face reality yet. I wasn't in reality in Nepal. I was home for a couple weeks jet lagged. Now I'm here, that I know, and I'm scared of it. Like, when I go home in a couple weeks, like, or in a week, it'll be reality, facing a lot of these things, and how are we going to rent the building, sell the building, or get creative with the building, or you know, what are we going to do? And I'm going to be, I already have sessions booked, and so what are we going to do with Nemo while I'm shooting? You know, just all these things are going to hit us. And so I think, again, I just have to stay committed to what are my goals and my priorities with my family and our life, and then figure out how the studio fits in there, rather than it was always about the studio and how does my family fit in there. It's just that's flip-flopped. Right. And so, you know, now I have like however many accountability partners, you know, I said I have accountability.
That's great.
Who are listening to this today.
Well, what's great about it too is your story is it is very dramatic. I mean, given it's international intrigue. There's so many things that are going on, and you've been on MSNBC and NPR and every your ESPN or Sports Nation or whatever. You know,
I don't know why, but yeah.
Every channel I can imagine. And this did become international news. And I think for our photo community, I know a bunch of us have wanted to rally. And I guess two things come to mind. One, there are some things that you were exposed to over there that I know you've taken a stand for, that the photo community has gotten behind, and I know I'm excited and others want to kind of stand with you in this whole thing. We'll talk about that in a second. But the second is, even if folks don't have this international intrigue in the circumstances of their lives, but it still feels very similar, like their worlds are getting turned upside down, or just internally, the world is just fine. But
well, I think a lot of people that are facing it's just like, I mean, the economy. I mean, I bring it up everybody's, but I mean, I think a lot of people are facing all kinds of turmoil.
That's right. But what I'm hearing you say is, like, even in these next 3 or 4 months, it sounds like you're going to go home and spring clean, like kick ass. Like,
yeah, have a garage sale,
Right.
Yeah.
And I know in my experience,
clean the clutter.
Yeah, and as a metaphor, like, there's not much more that feels more awesome.
No, I'm excited about it. I mean, I am.
Yeah.
There's definitely a level of excitement
Yeah.
for that. I have 10 years of just collecting stuff, and whether it's just I mean, there's just some big changes, like, in the business. I think I can, I need to practice what I've been teaching. Like, I've been saying from the platform for years, like, I know something happened and if I had to get rid of everything in the studio and I have my one couch I keep and my one background, I could do it. Like, I've been saying that. And I never really thought I'd have to do it. And I don't know if it's going to really become that extreme, but it's like, okay, and I've been talking about how, I was still, when we were out of our basement and I was shooting on the one background I painted with my mom, and, I had to stand through a hallway on a couch to get back far enough to get everybody in the photo, just thinking back to those times when I didn't have a lot, but I still had a business, that I think it'll be liberating in some ways, to scale back. And
so I hope this, if you guys are at home listening, I hope this is hopeful.
Should I get Nima?
Yes, you gotta get Nima, and I'm gonna set up the other thing too.
She might be crabby because
hopefully she's sleepy. We want you guys to meet Nima. She'll be out in just a second. And again, if you guys have any last minute questions or comments, please share them, not just in the chat room, but in the light bulb space, so I can actually pull you guys up. But we're gonna get Nima out here in a second, so you guys get a chance to meet her. Also, if she's not here right now, so be sure to follow at VTaufer, VTAUFER. And give a shout out to her today, and we'll see Nima here in just a second.
Somebody's got sleepy face.
Hello, baby.
Hello. Hey, look.
Hello.
Look.
Who's that? Who's that? Who's that?
It was time to wake up anyway. You're stinky. Oh, yes. What do you want? Say hello. You say namaste. Namaste. Oh, look. Take a picture. You want that? Huh? Start her young.
That's awesome. Now, as you guys are just standing here, I'll ask you some questions. Nima represents how many orphans in Nepal right now?
1 out of every 28 people is an orphan. So there's 28 million people, and almost 1 million are orphans.
1 out of every 28, and a little shy of 1 million.
Yep.
So the country itself must have about 20 million then.
Yeah, and it's actually not even considered a developing country. It's not even up to that level. It's called a least developing country. And so, I mean,
so it's not third world. It's like fifth world.
It's one of the top 10 poorest countries in the world. I mean, it's pretty rough. And we were living in the city, which is just overcrowded and polluted, and some of the mothers developed asthma just from the pollution. And, yes. But yes, lots of, some of them orphans, most of them aren't necessarily even up for adoption. They're orphaned. Maybe it's just that the parents cannot care for them. And, they're still alive and just have put them in the orphanage. In Nima's case, she was abandoned. And, unfortunately, Nepal's also a place where a lot of not in this case, but the trafficking that does occur, it's trafficking of children, older children, to Indian circuses. One of the organizations I worked with focuses on rescuing those kids, and then also into the sex industry into India as well. And so that's really the extreme, that the trafficking that happens there. So a lot of the organizations that exist are to help those kids in those situations. And you know, there's so many opportunities there though to help. I mean, there's just so many kids. You know, and like I said, now that adoptions are shut down, you know, the hard part about that is people and places will lose funding. Kids will be put out on the street and become, you know, at risk now to be trafficked because they're homeless.
That's amazing.
And so,
I'm going to put the resource in the chat room here. But what is the site that you created?
ashafund.org. It's AASHA fund.org. So and that means hope in Nepali. And so I mean, and we just threw up a website today so that something will be there, but it'll be, you know, changing and doing more with it.
If you're watching this on replay, it's ashafund, AASHAFUND.org. And if you go there, what are people going to see?
Well, right now, like I said, it's pretty basic. It's going to give them a little bit of background on what we went through in Nepal and the focus of the Asha Fund, which is right now the focus will be to help families and kids in Nepal, but ultimately it's going to be to help. It's set up to help kids and families everywhere. It does not have to be internationally. It does not have to be Nepal. Obviously, right now our focus is going to be Nepal because we have those connections and people we've met. So we have the fund, which then we will donate to different organizations that we've become familiar with. And yet, the goal of the fund, I know, the goal though of it is, you know, really of a fund is the longevity of it. This is something we'll pass down to her kids someday to, you know, donate the money to causes that help families and children. That's
great. So if people want to, and there's also some really cool things that you put up there, right, in terms of your fine art work.
Yeah, that people, will be, and I'm hoping to add some work from even other photographers. That money will go to the fund, and you know, it's just like I said, I've only been home a few weeks, so at the beginning stages, we have a lot of ideas in the works of what we eventually want it all to become, but we wanted to get started.
That's great.
And so, start raising the money so that you know, we'll have something of significance to donate.
Well, as if you guys are regulars in the show, you know that at the end of the show, I often say, "Hey, would you please go ahead and tweet or say hi, or you know, be sure to follow our guest or whatever." The thing that you could do that would be most helpful today is to let as many people know about Asha Fund. And if there's any way that you would be willing to say, "Hey, check this out. You got to hear Vicky's story." You can even check the link that I put up earlier today for the MSNBC article. People want context, but I think this is a cause that the photo community should totally stand behind. And the community of photography, we do a lot of cool things around the world, from, you know, what Help Portrait does to support of things like thirst relief and other things. This one, though, is close to home. And as I've gotten to know the Toppers and have fallen in love with this run, and by the way, I was the first public presentation that I actually got. Nima came up and I got to hold her while I talked yesterday. But would you consider, please, spreading the word about this and just retweet it, let people know? It would be a huge deal. And of course, if you want to say thanks to Vicky later, that would be great. But Vicky, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yes.
And thank you for taking a stand and for being my Nana. Yeah, totally. Can I have 5?
Oh, she is stinky. You can have her.
I like it. I like it. What? What?
Look.
What? Who's that? What? 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 Say see you later.
See you later, alligator.
So long.
Bye-bye.